everyone. My name's Millie Thomas. I am one of the assistant managers of the undergraduate admissions team, and I'm joined by Ruth Craig, who's one of the managers of the UG team. I'm going to go through a presentation with you to begin with. I'm going to go through the application process and personal statements. So, first thing you need to know is our key admissions dates. So our applications open in the beginning mid-September. We receive most of our applications, or quite a lot of them, around the 15th of October, which is the medicine and dentistry course, but also the deadline for Oxbridge. Don't feel like you have to meet that deadline, you don't, because the important deadline is, I'm going the wrong way, this way, I'm looking at this screen, not this one, is the 31st of January. Can you all remember that deadline for me? It's an important one. It is the 31st of January, thank you. That's the important one. That's the one you need to apply to us by. If you apply for around that date, it means, not around that date, by that date, you have to do it by that date, it means that we consider your application in equal consideration as anyone else who've applied. So that means you can apply on the 4th of September or the 31st of January, and you've got the same amount of chance of getting in. We do not do a first come, first served. Anyone before that date is considered on par with everybody else. So, when we receive your application, what is it that we see? So we see your personal details. So that's all the normal stuff like your name, your date of birth, but it also includes some contextual information. So it might include your school, well, it will include your school type, if you are eligible for free school meals or not, as well as your postcode, which links to the participation of people in higher education in your area. And they're the main things that we take into consideration when we're looking at the context of your application. We also get your academic profile, so that's any level 2 qualifications that you've done, so your GCSEs or equivalent, and your predicted or already achieved level 3 qualifications, so that's your A-levels, IB or equivalent to those, and your predicted grades. That's really important because we look at your academic journey. So we look right from the very beginning, because sometimes during GCSEs in particular, there's a lot of subjects to do. Half of them you're probably not that interested in, so your grades might be slightly lower, and then you get to A-levels and suddenly you're predicted really highly, because funnily enough, you're really interested in those 3 subjects. So don't worry if things don't correlate. We know that that's really common, but we look at everyone's academic journey in like a full picture. We also have your personal statement. That one is really important. The number one reason why applicants are unsuccessful here at Durham is due to the strength of their personal statement. So that one is the biggie. And your teacher reference. So we look at teachers' references because they will often explain if you've had any extra mitigating circumstances, anything that might go above or beyond, or they'll provide context to your grades. So that example that I just spoke about GCSEs versus A-level predicted grades, they'll be able to provide context for that. They might go, actually, didn't really enjoy the GCSEs, but are really thriving at A-level. That's the kind of information that we get from your reference, and it is really important. So we also have that and consider that. What happens once you submit your application? So first thing is that UCAS sends us all the information to us. Depending on when you upload your application to UCAS, it can depend how long it takes for us to get it. Sometimes it's the very next day, but if you submit it around really busy times, like around the 15th of October, or just before the 31st of January, it can take up to 3 or 4 days for it to come through to us. But once we've got it, our admissions team and their selectors consider your application. Once they've decided who's going to get an offer and who doesn't, they will then send that outcome to UCAS, which will update on your UCAS track. I think dates are included in there. No, it's not. So this goes through what we consider. I've already spoken about quite a few of those. So there is your prior and your predicted grades, personal statement, teachers and academic reference, and your motivation to study. So that's the important bit, is we're looking for what motivates you to study the subject that you're applying for. It's all well and good having a spark or an interest in a subject, but you are signing up to study academically for 3 years this subject. That's a really long time. So we're looking for your motivation, your passion and your enthusiasm for that subject, and we're looking for that within those parts of your application. This is a really scary slide, really sorry. I promise it's not as scary as it seems. So, we receive around 30,000 applications in the last couple of cycles, and we have probably now about 3,000, 4,000 places. So we are uber competitive. It is around 6.4 applications per place, that's on average. So some of our departments that will be a lot more competitive, and some of our departments it might be less so. The good news is that that is the amount of places available, not the amount of offers. We always make more offers than we have places available for loads of reasons. One, you might decide not to take up our offer and choose to go elsewhere. Absolutely fine. You might not get your grades. You might decide you want to go on a gap year, or you might decide university isn't for you at all and you're deciding to go straight into work. And all of those options are absolutely fine. But that's why we don't do the same amount of places as we have, the same amount of offers as we have places available. So actually, probably your chances of getting an offer is probably about here, if it sits. So it isn't quite as scary as it seems. We make most of our decisions for everyone that applies by the equal consideration deadline, which is what date? Thank you. So anyone who applies before that date, we aim to make all of our decisions we aim to make it about the end of March, but the actual deadline is in May. We make most of our decisions between January and March. That is when we make most of them. So if you apply in September, don't worry if you haven't heard from us yet, because it's unlikely that you will. And the reason why we do that is we don't like to make too many offers too soon, because we want to make sure we give everyone a fair chance of getting one. So like I say, most of our offers are a little bit later, but the part of the reason why we do that is it takes us quite a long time. There's a lot of applications, that's a lot of personal statements to read. And we do read them all. A real life human reads every single personal statement. Not a robot, not a computer, real life person. So it takes quite a long time, but it means that we're being fair, we're being really thorough, and that we are giving everyone the best shot of getting an offer as we possibly can. But it does mean it takes us slightly longer. College allocation. So we are not colleges. We don't work within that area, so please don't ask us too many questions because we might not know the answer. But we do know the process, we know how it should work. If you have any friends or any relatives that might have applied to Durham in the past, it is slightly different now. So in the past, we have had applicants put forward a preference on their UCAS form, like one preference. Don't do that anymore. When you go into UCAS, it'll just say Durham City as your only option. You select that one. Then, once you get an offer, you'll be asked to rank your colleges in preference from top to bottom. So while you're here today, get those steps in and see as many as you possibly can. So you've got a good idea what might be your top bit of your preferences versus your lower. Then it's done by computer algorithm. Don't ask me how it's done, I don't know. Big computer, I imagine a big computer and someone presses a button and it all goes into place. I'm not actually sure how it does work. All I know is it doesn't take, the only thing it takes into account is your subject, your kind of discipline. And the reason for that is, unlike Oxbridge, instead of having like all the people studying maths in this college and all the people studying English in this college, we like to mix it up. So we have an equal-ish amount of people from each department in each college. The reason for that is because we've learned a lot of things from COVID as a society, but if we've learned nothing else, is if we work with all of the same people and we study with all of the same people and we live with the same people and we eat with the same people, we want to kill those people. So we try and not do that. So you've got as much chance of meeting friends and getting to know people from different backgrounds, and so you're not just stuck with the same people all the time. It gives you the best chance to meet as many different people as you can. You'll be allocated your college before your replies. So we will give you your offer, you'll rank your colleges, we'll tell you where you've been allocated, and then you'll be able to put your firm or insurance choice. And we will do that before the replies deadline, so that you know that beforehand, or at least we aim to. That's the plan. You'll be allocated your college in or around April and May time next year. Your college allocation isn't fully guaranteed because things could change in the summer, because people don't get their grades, or people might go from insurance to firm. There's loads of different reasons why that might change. So while you are allocated your college, you're not 100% guaranteed it. If you've got any questions about the process, our lovely colleagues from colleges, I think, are on the top floor, and there's a desk there. So if you've got any questions about that process, they are all there ready to answer your questions. Things to do. Number one thing to do, please use your personal email address. And the reason why we ask you to do that is because a lot of applicants use their school email address. Don't do that. We don't recommend it. And it's because some school email addresses expire quite early. So you might finish school like now, like June time, and then they close your email address down, and then we send you lots of important information, and I mean lots. And you don't see it because the email address doesn't exist anymore. And then you ring us and we go, oh, we didn't think you were coming because you didn't reply to any emails. And then everyone cries and it's a bit stressful, and we don't want to do that. So please use your personal email address. Be aware of key dates. What's the equal consideration deadline? Thank you. And finally, keep on top and read your emails. You're going to get loads of emails. You're going to be going to loads of open days. You're going to be signing up for loads of information. A lot of it might be spam, some of it from us. Keep on top of your emails. Once you know where you're applying to, unsubscribe from everywhere else. So it's easy to keep up, because some emails are just there for information and some emails are really important. The main one is we ask you, after you've got your place, you've got your exams, we send you an email and say, are you definitely coming? Please tell us, because you might have changed your mind, you might have decided to go on a gap year. If you don't reply to that, we think you aren't coming and we withdraw you. And a lot of people then email us up and go, why have you withdrawn us? And we go, oh, because you didn't reply to anything for like months. So keep on top of your emails. It's really important. I don't want to be speaking to any of you next August because you haven't read your emails. And finally, I'm going to move on to the personal statements. This is the probably bit why you're here. This is like the important bit. These slides will be available to you, I forgot to say this at the start, in September. So after this lot of open days and the open days in September, you'll receive an email with a copy of all the slides. If you need it sooner, there's a link at the end, and I'll tell you where to go, and you can request it sooner. I'm sure we'll send it to you. So don't feel like you have to write everything down manically, because you can get a copy. So, what is a personal statement? It's your opportunity to write directly to the selectors and tell us all about yourself. So here at Durham, we don't do interviews. We only interview for primary education because the government says we have to, and for our foundation degrees, because they're slightly different to the normal foundation degrees at other places. So we do interview for those. But everything else, all we have is your application. So your personal statement is your only chance to kind of show us who you are and why you want to study. So it's super important. We want to know why you're applying, what all your enthusiasm for the subject, what it is about the subject that makes you want to apply and want to study it for 3 years, but also what makes you suitable for the course as well, not just why the course is suitable for you. Our advice is to draft and redraft again. Start as soon as you can. It can be a little bit of a lengthy and a bit of a scary process, so the sooner you start it, the easier it is. Get as much advice as you possibly can from friends, from older siblings or family members or parents or peers that are older than you. Get as much advice and as much as help as you possibly can. We're not just looking for what you have done, but also what potential you have. So it's not just about showing off all these experiences you might have been able to have, because some people haven't got the chance to do all of those things, especially just straight out of COVID. So don't feel like, oh, I can't write about this travel here, or I haven't been to this museum, or I haven't had a chance to read this book. That's fine. We're looking for your potential as much as what you've already been able to achieve. So talk about what you want to do, what you're really passionate about, what you aim to do, what coming to Durham University will give you the option to do. Also, we're looking at structure, spelling and grammar. That's an obvious one. Don't worry if you make a typo. Everyone makes a typo in something. You're not going to be, your application is going to be tripped on a pile somewhere because you put a comma instead of a full stop. Don't worry, that's not the end of the world. Obviously, if you make a lot of grammatical errors or a lot of spelling mistakes, it might be a concern, and that might not help, but don't panic about one little mistake. If you submit and you go back and you see it, don't panic, it won't be the end of the world. It is slightly more important for those subjects like law or English, where they will be looking for stuff, but physics and maths might not care quite as much. So try not to worry about it, but it is important, and get someone else to recheck it for you. It's not an exact science. So there's no such thing as a perfect personal statement. It doesn't exist. There's no formula for the perfect one, so that's not what I'm going to be able to give you today. Also, if there was a secret formula, of which there isn't, but if there was and then we told it you would all do the same thing, and then it would no longer be perfect, because what a good personal statement is it stands out from the crowd. And that's what we're looking for. So draft, redraft, get someone else to look at it. That's the main bit of advice, because you can become personal statement numb, like you've looked at it so many times that all the words stop making sense anymore. So get other people to look at it as much as you can, that will really help. Structure, so we're looking for an 80-20 split. 80 really is a minimum on the academic side, so that's all about the subject, the specific area that you are wanting to apply for. We're looking for enthusiasm, but one of the main things that we're looking for, and we don't always see, is critical engagement. And what that means is you're not just showing what you know about the subject, we want to know why you know that, what you think about it. Do you agree, do you disagree? That is the important bit. It's not just the what, it's the why and the hows. We are a university. We have so many reading lists. We don't need any more. So if you are applying, for example, English, and you say that you love reading, that's really great. But is it enough to want to study academically for 3 years? Like I say, loving reading is really good, and listing all the books that you love is great, but we've got loads of reading lists. We'd rather you talk about 1 or 2 books that you're really passionate about, that you really love, or you really hate, and why you do. That's what's really important. Do you agree with the historical argument, or do you think it's a load of rubbish? That's what we're looking for you to really critically get into the subject, and not just tell us what you think, or not think. We want to know what you think, not just tell us what you know. If I can open a book and find that same bit of information out from a book, then that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for your thoughts, your individual feelings on the topic. And then the 20, and that is like a maximum of 20. We're looking for more the 80%. Is everything else. So it's your hobbies, responsibilities, achievements, and things like that could be on there. And also, what have you done that could contribute to the course and the university community as well? So that would be in the 20%. Sorry, I'm going to have to take a quick drink. Putting the fan on was a mistake. These top tips, starting on things not to do. So first thing not to do is don't try and be funny. The person who's making the decisions on the application might not have the same sense of humour as you, and it could go wrong quickly. We would advise against trying to be funny if you can. The other thing that we see quite often is a chronological history. No one has wanted to study physics since they were 6 months old, ever. Not a thing. Also, it means that you get in the habit of going, I really like this, and then I did this, and then I studied that, and because I studied that, I then did this, so now I want to study here. Really boring. It also then means that you use You use up characters that we know elsewhere, like we know you studied these subjects at GCSE, and then you studied your A-levels in these subjects. So don't waste characters on it, because it's something that we know elsewhere in your application where it tells us what qualifications you've done when. Don't mention individual institutions. We know we're great. We know you want to apply to us because we're wonderful. You don't need to include it in your application, because just because you say we're great and you want to apply, it doesn't mean we go, oh, we're definitely going to give them offer because they've bigged us up. Doesn't work like that. And equally, if you big up another university that isn't us, that's also a waste of characters. It doesn't really help in any way, shape or form. So we'd advise against doing that. Of course, mention other institutions. Say, if you've been to a TED Talk somewhere and you want to talk about it because you learnt a lot from it, or you've done summer school or something like that, feel free to mention other institutions then, but don't waste characters just trying to big up one institution over another. It's not going to give you the edge, I promise. And that goes back to wasting characters. You've got a lot to write about in a very short space of time. You don't need to say, I studied geography, and in my geography A-level I have learnt this. We know you studied geography because it says in your application, so we would avoid that. And the final one is do not copy. We know UCAS tells us, if you've done it, not worth it. It searches all of Google and all of the other applications that have ever applied to, via UCAS ever. So if you think you can copy your best mate's big sister's personal statement and we won't know, we will. It tells us. We get an email that says, Joe Bloggs has copied, and he's copied 90%. We're like, ooh, you're not going to get an offer. So we take plagiarism really, really seriously as an institution hopefully you're a student here, if that's what you want to be. Plagiarism is a really big deal, and we have systems that check all of your work to make sure that it isn't plagiarised. So we start that early. So if we do find out that you have copied your personal statement, it might be that you don't get an offer as a result of that. Or if we're giving you an offer and then we find out, we can take that offer away. So please don't do it. It's not worth it. I know it's tempting. Not worth it. We know. Don't do it. And the other thing is things to do. So this is the nice of it. So this is a lot easier for me to say than it is to do, and we do appreciate that. But try and be original and avoid generalisations. A lot of you might be all doing A-levels. You might be doing a similar curriculum, which means you'll be reading and learning about the same thing. If your personal statement is about that national curriculum, what do you think everyone else is going to write about? That same national curriculum. So if you can, step outside of that. I like to use, you know when you're watching a film and you go, oh, I recognise that actor from somewhere, and you end up in like a bit of a Wikipedia wormhole? Use your national curriculum as that, as the original movie. Go, oh, I'm quite interested in this little bit. I'm going to find out more about that. And then you might find something else that sparks something else that you might be interested in. So use your national curriculum as that. Try and go outside of the boxes for your personal statement. But again, I know it's a lot easier said than done, but try and step out of the normal boxes. Ensure you read the course content when you're applying. Basically, that means make sure you have looked at the course you are applying for. That sounds obvious. It's not. Just because you're applying to history, say you're applying to history everywhere, and you love history, and you love military history, that's what you really care about. Say you write your personal statement about military history, that's great. You're not going to get an offer from us, because we don't offer military history as one of our modules. So, but that doesn't mean that another course called history with the same course code, they might offer it at another university. So make sure you've really looked at the course content before you write your personal statement, because you don't want to go off on a tangent and write about something that the university does nothing on, because it means that you might not get an offer. Be specific, use examples and give evidence. So not just say, I think this, why do you think it? What argument backs it up? What have you done to get to that point? We want examples and evidence of where you might have found information, what it is that you've done. If you can, and it isn't always possible, but see if your interests and hobbies are relevant to the subject, where if you can. Like I said, not always possible, but I have read one personal statement for someone who was applying to physics, and they used that knowledge on how to improve their hockey game, because they loved hockey, and that was their interest. And actually, they managed to improve their hockey by their physics knowledge. I don't know how, because I know nothing about hockey or physics, but it sounded good. We also want to hear about your aptitude for the subject, not why it's worth studying. We know it's worth studying, which is why we offer it. So you don't need to persuade us. We're already fully persuaded. We want to talk about why you want to study it, not why it's worthy of. And we offer a service that isn't available for every university. It is something that we do. It's called a substitute personal statement. And what it is it's an option to send a substitute statement instead of your one at UCAS. We only accept it for a certain reason, and that is if your subjects are vastly different to the ones at UCAS. So, for example, if you have applied for medicine, I didn't know this before I worked here, but anyone who's applying to medicine can only apply to medicine for 4 of their courses. So you have 5 options at UCAS, they can only apply to medicine for 4. So their personal statement is going to be about medicine because that's the 4 of their university choices. The 5th choice, they might choose to apply to us for, say, health and human sciences or chemistry. Chemistry might be their second passion and that's what they're going to apply for. So they have the option to send us a substitute personal statement that is just about chemistry or just about health and human sciences. We have a lot of combined degrees here at Durham that isn't offered everywhere else. So you might have, say, sticking on the chemistry mark, you might have applied to chemistry for your other universities, but for here, you want to apply for natural sciences, which has a bit of chemistry, a bit of maths, a bit of physics, and therefore you might want to do a personal statement that is about the subjects within natural sciences, not just focused on chemistry. You don't have to write a whole new statement. It doesn't have to be completely different. It can be just slightly different, just has a little bit about those extra subjects in there. It is a substitute, not as well as. So if you receive one of these, we won't look at your UCAS one, we'll just look at your substitute one. It's not an opportunity to, write more and get double the chance. It doesn't work like that. It's also not an opportunity to just go, we love Durham, even though you will do, because we're great. If you write, I love Durham, I want you to pick me, please give me an offer, that won't work either. So it isn't used for those reasons, it's just if you are doing different subjects. We recommend, if you know you're going to do that, to have it ready when you apply. What will happen is you'll apply via UCAS, a day, maybe up to a few days later, depending on how long it takes. You'll receive an email to say that we've got your application and we're considering it. When you get that email, then you'll be given instructions on how to send us your substitute personal statement. We recommend it's within about 3 days of your original sending it, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to get your application, we consider it early, on the wrong personal statement, and you're like, oh no, I wanted to send you a separate one. So that's why we ask you to do it quite quickly. And it has the same rules as UCAS, so the same amount of characters, still no formatting, it's not an option to just write more, it's the same rules apply so that it's fair. And then we are just directing to our website and moving on to questions in a minute. We don't do prospectuses anymore because we're trying to save the trees. It's part of our green initiative. Prospectuses are like this big, they're like doorstops, and half the information you're not bothered about. Like if you know you want to study English, why do you want to know about all of the business school departments? You don't care about it. So it means that you can go in, you can select the departments or the subjects that you're interested in. If you really care about sport at Durham, you can select sport and you'll get loads of information about sport. If you couldn't care less about sport and you care more about the drama and music side of things, then you can find out about that, and it will just send you the information that you care about and you want to know about. And then if you have any questions, we have a web form at the bottom. That's what, if you've got any questions at anything at any point, if you follow that link, it will send you to the web form to send everything in. If you would like a copy of these slides before September, that's the place to go and ask for it.